Hi everyone, it's my birthday today, and to celebrate I've made the fluffiest ever chocolate sponge cake with a chocolate cream and a super light genoise sponge. Now I'm using these really fancy looking silicone tourbillon moulds, and tourbillon spelled kind of like tourbillon in case you're interested, and my recipe for the pudding on the top makes two, so you only need one to top the cake, the other one you can just eat, and you're going to want to eat it because it's delicious. And I use agar to make the gel as well, so it's vegetarian. So let's go. First, we're going to take 50 milliliters of hot water and 4 teaspoons of cocoa powder because we're actually going to make the set pudding topping first. So give that a good whisk until it's incorporated. And you don't need to use a fancy little whisk like this, you can just use a spoon and stir it. I'm just using this because I have it and it's easy. And once that's done, we're going to transfer it into a small saucepan. This one's kind of big, but my small ones are being used up for other things, so I just had to use what I had. Now we're going to sprinkle on the agar powder, and I've got 1.5 grams here, and agar's made out of seaweed rather than gelatin that's made out of animal products. So once again, this is totally vegetarian. And now we're going to give this a good old stir and heat it until it's bubbling, as you can see here. And make sure all of that agar is nice and incorporated. Once you've done that, we're adding 175 milliliters of double cream, giving it a good stir, and then 25 grams of caster sugar. Now we're going to turn the heat up to a boil while we whisk it, and finally add 30 grams of dark 70% cocoa solids chocolate. Keep whisking, we want to keep it hot until it's nice and smooth and incorporated, and now we're just about ready to pour it into the mould. So like I said earlier, this is going to be enough to fill the 2 moulds, but because this pudding is so rich and thick, this will definitely be tasty by itself, so you can use one to top the cake, and then another time you can slice the other one and eat it with some berries. What I'm doing here is I'm piercing some of those surface bubbles on top, just so it's nice and smooth when it's set, and I'm giving it a little jiggle to make sure that it all fills those nooks and crannies. Finally, we're going to chill that overnight in the fridge. Now the next day I'm preheating the oven to 180 degrees C, and now we're going to make our super fluffy light genoise sponge. And to do that, we're going to need 6 eggs, and the magic of this recipe is you don't need to separate them. So we are going to beat this until it's super fluffy, but we don't have to separate the eggs. Now we're adding 215 grams of sugar, and now we're breaking up those egg yolks a bit and giving it a bit of a stir. Now for the next step, we want to heat that eggy sugar mixture over a pan of simmering water, so just barely simmering, we don't want it boiling, until all the sugar is completely dissolved and the eggs have started to go a bit warm. This will help bolster the eggs in a bit and keep that structure. So once that's done, you see I've put it on the towel underneath to keep it steady, and I'm going to whisk this until it's gone really thick and foamy, and this took me about 10 minutes. So keep going, be patient until you've reached this stage. This is ribbon stage, and you can see when you drag the whisk up and over, it's leaving a trail of like a ribbon of batter, and that means you're done. Next, we're grabbing 125 grams of self-raising flour, 20 grams of cocoa powder, and then 60 grams of corn flour, and this will help keep that texture really light. And we've got to sift this all in to help prevent any lumps. So let me grab my big old sift here and sift everything in. And you might have noticed that I'm using a very big bowl to do all of this in because you need plenty of space to work with. Now that that's in, we're going to carefully, gently fold all of that together. You can use a metal spoon or a spatula. I'm using a whisk here, and I'm just carefully tapping the batter through the spokes. Careful not to beat out too much of that air that you spent so much time making. And I find a balloon whisk makes things go that little bit faster. And finally, for the sponge, we're adding 25 grams of melted unsalted butter along with a tablespoonful of milk, which I've melted gently together and then cooled. And again, we're going to gently incorporate this in by folding, again being very careful not to knock out too much air. Make sure you scoop right underneath to the bottom of that bowl too, just to make sure everything's well mixed. Now we're going to divide it evenly between 3 pans. Now these are 3 8-inch pans that I've greased and lined the bottoms with non-stick baking parchment, which will make life much easier later when I want to get the cakes out. So you can use a scale to evenly weigh everything. I don't bother, I just eyeball it. This isn't going to be sold, this isn't a professional cake, this is just my birthday cake. And once that's done, we're going to pop them in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes or until a toothpick inserted into the centre comes out clean. Whilst that's going, we're going to make a syrup. So we're adding 50 millilitres of water and 50 grams of caster sugar, and boiling it for 3 minutes. Then I'm taking it off the heat and adding 1 tablespoonful of rum. Now you don't have to do this if you don't like rum. You could add a few drops of vanilla, or if you don't want any alcohol at all, maybe a bit of coffee or nothing at all. So I'm taking these cakes out of the oven now, and I'm going to let them cool completely until they reach room temperature. Once they've done that, I'm going to flip this out. And if you have uneven cakes, mine aren't actually too bad here, but if yours are uneven, you can always grab a knife like this and just chop off the top. This is also handy if you've accidentally put a bit too much cake batter in one of the tins and one's too tall. As it happens, mine were quite even this time. I'm quite pleased, but this is a little hack. And don't forget to keep those scraps and eat them with snacks later, don't throw them. Now we need 450 millilitres double cream because we're going to make the filling. And the filling's my favourite part, it's so good! And we're going to add 55 grams of cocoa powder. And like I said, you'll be surprised at how rich and chocolatey this is even without any melted chocolate in it. So trust me on this. Now we're going to sift this in. Make sure you sift it, we don't want it going all lumpy. And now we're adding 85 grams of caster sugar. That's all you need for the filling, just these 3 ingredients. Now I'm going to whisk it until it's palpably thick, but as there's a lot of powder on top, I like to mix it manually before I actually switch the electricity on, otherwise you're going to get a huge cloud of cocoa everywhere. So be a bit careful at first, and when it starts mixing, then switch the power on. And it goes thick really fast. This is the kind of texture you're after. Now we're going to set this aside, and now we're going to whisk an extra little bit of double cream just for a bit of decoration. So I've got 100 millilitres here and nothing else. And just like before, I'm going to whisk it until it's palpably thick. And again, it's not going to take that long. See, it's already done. And this is just enough to decorate the top with. And now my favourite part, assembling the cake. Quick hack here, grab a small scoop of that chocolate filling and spread it on the bottom, and this is going to be your edible glue to stop your cake from sliding around the plate. Now grab 1 layer of cake. Remember to peel off that paper because you don't want to be eating that. There's something so satisfying about peeling baking paper off of cake. And now we're going to generously brush it with that simple syrup we've just made. And give it a good soaking, don't be shy. And now we're going to use some of our chocolate cream. I've popped mine in a piping bag, and I'm going to pipe little fancy balls all around the edge, which you'll be able to see on the side of the cake. And then in the middle I got lazy and I just piped stripes, concentric circles as you can see here, because you're not going to see these. Now I'm going to repeat the whole process with the other 2 slices of cake. Only we're not going to pipe the chocolate cream on the top layer, and you'll see why in a minute. Remember, we've got that fancy tourbillon topping waiting. Once you've used up all of the syrup on the top, now I'm just going to messily pipe on a bit more cream on top, but we don't need too much, which is just as well because I made a right pig's ear of that, because we're going to spread the rest into a thin-ish layer. This is going to be the chocolate glue for our topping. So spread it as evenly as you can because we still want a nice flat top. And now, as you can see, I've marked on where the centre is because it's time to pop on one of those chocolate pudding tourbillons. And now we're just going to pipe on that bit of plain double cream around the edge just for a little bit of style, a little bit of flair. Now pop it in the fridge for an hour to set, and that's it, you are done. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you'll join me next Wednesday for my next one. Get the full recipe on my blog tashcakes.com and find me on Instagram as tashcakestastes. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you'd like to see more. Go on, do it for my birthday. Give this video a like if you liked it to help other people find it. Comment down below if you'd like me to make anything in particular, and I'll see you guys later. Be good, be nice, and have a good week.